Hello everyone, this is Marianne and welcome to my channel. In this video, I just thought I would share my process in the cutting and archiving of the journal pages that I have in my Midori MD A5 notebook that I use as a journal. Now I have talked about this before in a different video which I will link down below, but for my journal I use the Midori MD A5 notebook and I have a Hobonichi cover and cover on cover for it. This is it that I'm using right now. But for archiving, I prefer to archive everything using the same page size that I use for my planner pages and for my ephemera pages, and sticking to a single page size for everything is one of the things that help me sustain my planning and archiving system, and I have talked about this in a different video which I will also link down below. But now I have come to the end of the Midori MDA5 notebook and it's already time to cut down the pages and archive them. But before I could do that, I have to number the pages because from bound they are going to become loose leaf, and in order for me to be able to archive them in the proper order, I must have some kind of reference to show me that I am putting everything in order. Now my planner pages are loose leaf, but archiving them is not a problem because every page has a date on it, so I always know that I'm archiving them in the proper order. But with this particular journal, I don't have such a reference, so there is a need for me to write down the page numbers on every single page, and that's what we are going to do. And I had to go through my archives to check what page number I was at before I left off putting page numbers on my journals, and I found that the last journal volume that I numbered was the one that ended on December 7, 2013, and I was writing it in my old apartment on a Saturday at 4:13 in the afternoon. And I have also shown my archives before in a previous video and I will link it down below, but I have discovered that the last page number that I was on when I was numbering my pages was 5546. Now this is the last journal that I was on before I switched to the loose leaf ring bound system, and when I transferred to the Filofax personal sized, I didn't number my journal pages, so all of these that you see here, all of my archives have journal pages on them that are not numbered. However, from I think September 2013 until November 2013, I was still journaling in my Midori Traveler's Notebook regular size, and I do have a video which I will link down below, which talked about how I use the Midori Traveler's Notebook together with the Filofax personal sized. And pulling up my archives for December 2013, I saw that I indeed had a section for journal pages in it, and that began in December 8, 2013. My first entry was for 11:34 in the morning on a Sunday, and I was at the choir loft of the San Agustin Museum. I mentioned before in a previous video that it's one of my favorite museums, and the choir loft is one of my favorite places in that particular museum, which is probably why I made it a point to go to the choir loft of the San Agustin Museum to write my very first journal entry on my ring-bound planning system. So therefore, from page number 5546, we are going to continue the pagination to 5547. And I always number all of my journal pages continuously, no matter what volume I'm on. I just keep continuing the page numbering. And that started in around 2006 or something when I started using the spring bound journals, and I have a separate video about this which is very old, but I will link it down below anyway. But for this afternoon, I simply wrote down by hand all of the page numbers on every single page of my journal from the loose leaf archives personal sized. Sometimes when there is no longer any space on the paper left for me to put the page number on, I put it on the outside margin like this one. And it's perfectly okay because my goal is just to be able to clearly see what page number I'm already on. So I was still able to make it work. At one point during the process, I discovered that I had these pages. These are personal sized pages still, but instead of writing down my journal entries by hand, I wrote them using my typewriter. And I have made a video about my typewriter and I will link it down below. And I just was so amused that I used to type my journal entries. Now, this is not personal sized paper. What I did was simply make the US letter paper shorter so that it will be the same height as the personal sized pages, but in archiving them, I simply folded it up accordion style to be able to fit the size of my archives. And if you can see that the typewritten entries are in red, I was using the red part of the two-color typewriting ribbon that I had at the moment, and I believe that this is still the ribbon that's on my typewriter when I made the video. And I also saw these. These are my pages for One Book July 2017. I was using the ruled Tomoe River paper from Remy Da Vinci and also the Jinhao Dragon 999 pen and the Diamine Udinil ink. And what you're seeing here is a sketch of the layout of my dorm closet because I was planning out what I am going to store where inside that particular closet. So I even journaled about it. And then finally, we get to these pages from One Book July 2017. And in this particular One Book July, I was journaling about my process for finalizing my framework for my graduate thesis. And really, the way I wrote down all of the page numbers is this way. I wrote it down with a fountain pen of a different color than the one that I wrote the journal entry with. Right now, the journal entry is written with Lamy Pacific, so I'm writing down the page numbers with J. Urban Pocher de Lune. And because fountain pen ink dries quite a little slowly on the Tomoe River paper, I just kept inserting pieces of tissue paper in between the pages so that they won't smear and so that the tissue paper could absorb the remaining fountain pen ink that had not yet dried, and also so that it won't take me too long, so I won't have to wait for the ink to become dry on the page before turning the page over and writing down the next page numbers. And here I just wanted to share with you a page in my journal that I came across. I even journaled about how I was going to write in my Midori MD-A5 journal. I planned out the template that I was going to use underneath every page so that I can write in a straight line, but also write in the precise area that will be the same as the personal sized pages. So I just thought I'd show that. And finally, the last page on the loose leaf ring bound journal pages that I have is number 6593. So, in other words, the first page in my Midori MD-A5 journal before I cut it down will be 6594. And so here we are with the ink still a little bit wet. This is page number 6594 of my journal. And then I turned it over without putting the table napkin underneath it. I don't know why. Probably because there was nothing on the page before that. But I simply just continued to scribble on the page numbers. And finally, at the end of the process, we are at page number 6758 of my journal, and that is the last page on this Midori MDA5 journal, and then we can now proceed to cutting the pages down to personal sized. The first step in cutting was to actually take all of the pages out from the binding. So what I did was I simply took a box cutter and then I sliced the pages down while making it a point to leave the crop marks in. I didn't want to cut way too close to the portions with handwriting because I wanted to leave the crop marks in, because the crop marks will be my guide for cutting down the paper in a more precise manner using the paper trimmer. And when I was all done taking out the pages from the binding, this is how everything looked. It's a stack of loose leaf papers, but I wasn't worried at all that I will archive them in the wrong order because I already have written down the page numbers on every single page. And then the next step would be, of course, to take my little paper trimmer. It's a very basic one that is not even branded. And then I just lined up the crop marks with the groove on the paper trimmer and then slid the blade across, but not completely across. I still left a little bit of paper so that it won't fall off, so that I will still have crop marks remaining on the entire sheet before completely cutting it off on the final pass of the blade, like I am showing right here. And when all of the cutting is done, finally we have this final stack. There is 6594 right there, and here is page number 6593. And this is the journal section from August 2017, and the first journal entry that I made in the Midori MDA5 notebook is actually still for August, so I took the recently cut pages pertaining to August and then put them into the August Journal 2017 section of my archives. The next stack of sheets are the journal pages that have been recently cut down pertaining to the September 2017 journal pages, but I actually made a mistake. Instead of leaving a blank page in between the last entry for August and the first entry for September, I did not. So I accidentally wrote in my September 1 journal entry together with the pages for August 2017. So what I did was I simply wrote down and highlighted a portion of instructional for myself on the September 2 journal pages to remind myself or to inform myself that September 1 has been archived with the August pages. And then the next set of recently cut journal pages are for the journal pages for the month of October 2017, and it starts with page 6702. And just like the journal pages for the previous months, I simply put them into the planner archive in which they belong. Now, you can see me here putting on the pages onto an archive volume that has only 2 book rings. It usually has 6, and the reason is because I just started a new archive volume starting for October, and I ran out of book rings, but I found 2 so I just used those 2 first in the meantime that I have not yet been able to run to the office supply store to buy a new set of book rings. And book rings, by the way, are one of the things that help me make my planning system and archiving system more sustainable, and I will link the video about it down below. The last entry in that particular Midori MDA5 notebook that I just recently cut down to show in this video is for November 6, but I also cut that down. I also placed a page number on there. We are now on page 6758, and I placed it into the archive for November. And of course, it's time to move to a fresh new notebook. Here is another Midori MDA5 notebook, which I purchased from either Scribe or Everything Calligraphy. And on the last pages, I just scribbled on with a Zig Clean Color Real brush pens because I wanted to try if I can make planner dividers out of not a computer printout, but out of something that I have, drawn on with the Zig Clean Color Real brush pens, but I didn't really like how it looked, so I just left it. I just abandoned the entire idea. And now you can see that we have fresh blank pages, and I really feel so excited whenever I see fresh blank pages on a notebook because they're always so full of possibilities. And I also made new templates, and in these new templates I have added the also the outline for the crop marks that I had to follow, because if you watched my previous video about making the Midori A5 notebook templates, I had to use a ruler and a pencil so that I can draw the crop marks right onto the planner pages, and it was quite tedious, but it was okay. I was able to survive that. But this time I decided to print the template for the crop marks together with the template for the writing, so that whenever I have to write the crop marks right onto the journal pages, I simply trace those lines that I can see in the corners and not have to use a ruler anymore. I'm going to stick with this method of journaling and archiving because it allows me to stick to one of the elements that make my planning and archiving system sustainable, which is to stick to a single page size for everything. And that is my video for you today. I hope you were able to get some tips, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment down below what you think and share with me how you archive your journal pages and how you manage your pages if they are loose leaf. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time. Bye.